Super dub, Bobby's big board. Business booming as usual. Middle of the week kind of slow. Yeah, it's like that in general, especially when we're not actually in the middle of the season. I think it's going to blow up soon, though. Middle of the week kind of slow. Yeah, it's like that. Oh, that's who Moonlight Squad is. What's up, man? Super dub. Gonna give it a couple minutes here to see if anybody else wants to join, and then I'm gonna randomize it. So it looks like we've got all but 3 spots claimed here. Give it another couple minutes, and then I'll randomize it. We'll get started, and we'll have an interesting time. I'm gonna warn y'all in advance. The wins above replacement, the war for leagues where you have only one quarterback, one running back, one receiver, and one tight end are a little bit tricky. Obviously, in this mock draft, I can't do anything insane with the scoring settings. I can't actually, change those whatsoever, but only the lineup setting. So just something to keep in mind there. So, what are y'all's thoughts on the signing of J.K. Dobbins? Do we think R.J. Harvey is incredibly nerfed this season now, or do we think? What are we thinking about the split between the two? Curious what y'all think. Short yard goal line for Dobbins until he gets hurt. Yeah, isn't that right? It'd be interesting if JK actually somehow stays healthy like Connor did for the majority of this past season. I'm not really worried for RJ Harvey though. Second round draft capital, even if it's at the end of the second round, is still pretty darn good. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and randomize this one time, and then we'll get started. All right, so we have randomized it, and we are going to go ahead and start the draft. At least with Connor, it's been smaller injuries. When Dobbins gets hurt, he goes all out. Yeah, as a Ravens fan, it was Pretty depressing, Bobby. It's not ideal by any means. Okay, so we get standard Josh Allen at 101. Art goes Daniels at 102. Pretty normal. Interesting, the CPU decides to go with Jamar Chase over Lamar Jackson. That's pretty rare. So Prob, as usual, absolutely smashes his pick. Now we have Yab Sarah. We have Agent Howie. Let's see if he pops on. You don't get the 101 exactly, Bobby. You stay with the good luck. And you fully understand how to take advantage of having said luck too and make your teams very, very good. Somebody at Howie. What are we doing here? But yeah. I sent a sleeper message to Howie in the league chat to see if he'd pop up. But yeah, interesting that the CPU chose Jamar Chase. I don't think I've ever seen him, even after the Triple Crown season, in which he had this past season, go third overall. It's every single time been some combination, at least in a super flex, of Allen, Daniels, or Jackson. And so Prob gets an absolute smash at the 104. Pause it. I want to join, please. Woke. Can I actually do that and let you in real quick or nah? I'll pause this real quick. How do I let you in though? I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can just let you in. Why don't you do a collab with 100% guaranteed like you have in our one league? I'm gonna go ahead and resume this. It'll be interesting. All right, well, I paused it to both see if I could allow Woke into the draft, which I don't think I can do. Hey, y'all in the chat, are you good? We'll keep going. I'm sorry, Woke. I do plan on going live again this week though. And then definitely basically every week we'll keep doing mocks. All right, so Howie chooses Brock Bowers. Yes, Bobby, we can just give Howie's account to Lonzo. Howie. He gets Brock Bowers. That is exactly what you get for holding us up, Howie. Tisk tisk. So obviously, I don't think Howie would have selected Brock Bowers if he had been available at this moment in time. Not the best pick, just general value. and wins above replacement. He could definitely do better than tight end at 105. But that's going to be what it is. So Kiffin Falls goes Jalen Hurts. Pretty standard. Good quarterback. They didn't take away the tush push. That greatly helps insulate his value. They should be one of the more run-heavy teams again. And I think they're going to, like the Lions with Dan Skipper, how after that play where he said he reported and then the ref said he didn't, they made a point to have Skipper report eligible over and over and over and over again throughout the entirety of the season. I think they're going to make a point with the tush push and get Jalen Hurts a lot of touchdowns. So I do like that. Then 100% guaranteed goes Joe Burrow. Makes a lot of sense. He's coming off a dynamic season. If he stays healthy, he has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, a poor defense. Obviously, a lot to like there. And then Justin Jefferson goes. So here, I'm actually going to go with somebody who I think could easily finish as the wide receiver 1 this season. I'm going to go ahead and choose Malik Nabers. I think he is going to see another season of a ridiculous target share. I think he has much more competent quarterback play. I think legitimately all 3 of the quarterbacks on their roster now are significantly better than anyone he played with in his rookie season. And funnily enough, hold up, we got Reed in the chat. He says, how important is depth? Do you prioritize elite talent, zero hero, or more in the middle tier guys? So it really depends on the lineup. When you're starting, say, in a smaller lineup league, such as start 9, or especially if somehow you're starting less than that, you really want your studs because you just have less positions to make up that difference. Also, if you're in a smaller league, such as a 10 or, an 8-man, I guess, you potentially do want more studs. Whereas when you're in these, 12-team start 11, you just need more depth to be able to cover for the injuries and the bye week replacements. So, and it really is also, like Bobby said, about getting the value out of your startup picks. This is like a stock market. You want to have more value, perceived value, and obviously you want it actualized into production for sure. So then we have only one real going Bijan. I think there's plenty of reason to suspect he could easily be the RB1 this season. So I do like that pick. Which build you trying for this mock? I'm going to play it by ear, prob. Thinking definitely want to walk out of here with 2 competent quarterbacks, third that's a starter, and then probably if I'm going to one tip, and this is a mock, so I don't really care. One tip is generally when we have all these flex spots, I want somebody that has guaranteed volume. And while some receivers, you argue, do have guaranteed volume, with running backs, you're just generally going to get more volume, so the floor is a lot of times safer. And so I'm going to probably try to get more running backs in this one, but value is just going to dictate that depending on what other people do. So Bobby goes Mahomes, solid pick. I'd imagine they might see a little bit of defensive regression, and they've mentioned that they want to get more explosive on offense. We'll see if that's true. Obviously, anyone should say that. I don't know why you would say anything differently, but I think, with the return of Rashee Rice, if he can, at some point in the season look like his old self, I think that you can return Xavier Worthy to the deep threat role, and you could see a lot more explosion from this offense in general. And then Howie says he's sick because he got Brock Bowers. That's funny. And then Stick Stomper gets Jahmyr Gibbs and Puka Nacua. Jahmyr Gibbs could easily finish as the RB1. I think the Lions offense sees a little bit of regression, but I don't know that he really does. I think he's going to see a lot of work. And then Puka Nacua has tier 1 upside. Injury risk is definitely a thing with him, so you got to watch out for that. But absolutely dynamic player, gets schemed all kinds of touches. And then we get CeeDee Lamb by Bobby's Big Board. CeeDee Lamb, just as soon as this past season was going as the wide receiver, or he was going as the wide receiver 1 after his ridiculous 400-plus point finish in a full PPR setting. So he's going to probably be dominant again. And arguably the return of, or the acquisition rather, of George Pickens could open things up for him. I think there's a lot of short-sightedness on Mahomes. With Mahomes, like he could definitely just continue being somebody that's fine and not really a difference maker, but he has shown the upside in the past. Then with Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously a super stud. We could see some regression with the offense, but he's still going to be the locked in number one. His best season was still 2018. Yeah. So then to go ahead and make my pick. Looking at the quarterbacks that are left, I think there's kind of just a tier of quarterbacks that I think are all fine. So I'm going to go and I'm going to choose somebody that I think could be a game-breaking wide receiver one and probably will, and Brian Thomas, and double up at receiver here. I think that I could potentially get 2 top 4 wide receivers this season, top 5. If Brian Thomas does see the target share, I think he's going to see the CPU. I do like Caleb Williams. I think I'll be able to get a solid quarterback here on this return based on how there are no quarterbacks going. So then 100% guaranteed goes Nico Collins, another game-breaking wide receiver one when he actually plays. Just like Puka, there are, health concerns, but as far as the actual talent, there's no question. And he's locked in with quarterback CJ Stroud, who's absolutely amazing. Then Kiffin Falls goes with Drake London, another guy who I think is somehow undervalued with Drake London. I mean, I don't really think he's probably going to be the wide receiver one, but I would be absolutely shocked if he's not a wide receiver one. He's easily the number one target in this offense. Michael Penix, he put up, even though it was a limited sample size, some ridiculous numbers with him in limited action, including that 40-point outburst in Week 18 in a full PPR setting. Smash pick, in my opinion, another good pick, and he stacks him with Jalen Hurts. Now we got Howie. Howie, what are you going to do here? You got Brock Bowers, the cornerstone of your team. Amazing smash first round pick. What are we doing here? Howie goes with Caleb Williams. Good choice. I love the selection of Caleb Williams. Rob goes with Drake May. Same thing. Both guys who I think are getting coaching upgrades, who both have even more players in their offenses. With Drake May, he had nothing, and now he has, Kyle Williams, who I like, Stephon Diggs, Travion Henderson. With Caleb, the rich get richer, and his offensive line is rebuilt. I think we see a tremendous season from Caleb Williams this year, at least in comparison to what we saw this past season from a fantasy perspective. Prob with Drake May, doubling up at quarterback with Lamar Jackson and Drake May. I love that pick. So much upside. If things break right for Drake May, you could have 2 top 5 quarterbacks depending on, Lamar's health this season. So really good picks. Team 3 gets Chase and Barkley. With Barkley, I'm concerned. I know it's a CPU pick. I'm just concerned, with having 350 plus rush attempts if you include the playoffs. And that's not even including the receptions. That's just such a large workload at age 28 that I'm staying away from Barkley this year. Running backs historically that are aging and have had a workload like that typically do see some regression and injuries. So he could definitely be the exception to the rule, but I don't want to take that risk. Ladd McConkey at the end of the second. Interesting. He's usually in the 3rd round, but I do understand the love for Ladd McConkey. He's connected to Justin Herbert. He's absolutely amazing both in the slot and out wide. And really doesn't have anybody that I would be worried about in the passing game in terms of target competition. And then he's also in a division in which they should have to throw the ball plenty because everybody's going to be decent now, even the Raiders. Then we get Justin Herbert. So you double up with Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. I like that. You have your quarterback 1 and quarterback 2. And you have good real-life quarterbacks, so you don't have to worry about the longevity of them. Team 3 kind of cooking right now. The QB1's Michael Penix. Yeah. It's like that sometimes. We'll see what Only One Real does here. Trey McBride, okay. Somebody that is a difference-making tight end. The difference-making tight ends are very slim for us. So I'm going to go ahead and select my quarterback one, somebody that I think is going to have a big return this season. It is going to be CJ Stroud. So with CJ Stroud, his offensive line was atrocious this past season. Nico Collins missed time with injury. Tank Dell, uh, rest his soul in the playoffs with what happened to him. He just was not set up for success. And, I think that he is going to see a return to much more of what we saw in his rookie season than this past season. They drafted Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins. They signed or traded for Christian Kirk, a rare interdivisional trade. And then offensive line is still going to be a little bit iffy, but I'm not really too worried about that. With Marvin Harrison, the CPU pick, it's Jay Jettas, Harrison, and Genty. A fine pick, 100% guaranteed going with Omari and Hampton. I love that pick for you. So you have, quarterback one, wide receiver one, and RB1. We'll see where you go with the rest of this draft. Kiffin Falls stacks JSN with Drake London. JSN, a huge breakout candidate. And, Sam Darnold, we'll see how that experiment turns out. They drafted Jalen Milroe. They have Drew Lock as well as a potential option. But as your wide receiver two with JSN, you have to feel really comfortable. So Allison Burgers, unfortunately, since we started this draft, it's not going to be possible to add somebody else while we've already started. But we do appreciate you in the chat, and if you have any questions, we'll answer those. So he says he dropped Estime and picked up Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. So yeah, with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I love that guy. He has a ton of bursts in the short area of the field, enough long speed to get it done. His competition is mediocre in my opinion. I mean, you have Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. Eckler's aging out. He's a fine pass catching back at this point, really nothing else. And B-Rob's just not dynamic in the passing game and a fine runner, not particularly great. And Woke is trolling in the chat. They didn't let me join either. It's because it was after the draft started, so I appreciate that. So then now we have Howie going with T-Law to go with Caleb Williams. I love the quarterback pairing. So you have you have a difference-making tight end in Brock Bowers, easily the tight end one in my opinion, to go with upside with Caleb Williams and T-Law. Both quarterbacks who saw a ton of coaching upgrades throughout the offseason, as well as playmakers in the passing game. So then we have Prob going with Travion Henderson, somebody I am really high on. I love his fit. Ramondre is probably going to get, those crappy touches in between the 20s that are low value and we don't care about. And then I think he's going to get the third down work. He's the best pass protecting running back I've seen in some time coming out, and receiving upside and very efficient as well. So then team 3 goes with Garrett Wilson. So they stack Wilson and Chase together. Interesting build. I think they're going to suffer when it comes to their quarterbacks, but that's all right. Then Art goes with Bucky Irving, somebody who's incredibly talented. A surprise to most people, I would assume. Doesn't have the draft capital, but when you play as well as he did, assuming you don't regress as a player, I think you're going to be quite happy with what you get from him. The departure of Liam Cohen is interesting. We'll see how the offense is affected, but, we thought there was potentially going to be some decline when Canales left after the offense looked pretty good, and it looked way better under Liam Cohen. So they definitely have the roster and the offensive line especially to pave the way for Bucky Irving. So then we get Jonathan Taylor and Rashee Rice to stack with Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. So you have your quarterback 1 and 2 locked up. You got Taylor and Rashee Rice. So 2 guys. I think Rashee Rice, you'll have to wait a second to get some production out of him, potentially at least in terms of being full go. But the upside in the short yardage role in this offense, the yak role, is absolutely ridiculous. 0 RB, Sun, or punt and Superflex. So Art goes with Tetroy McMillan to stack with Ladd McConkey. I love Ted McMillan as your wide receiver 2. Should be easily the number 1 target in this Canales offense. I think you should see a good amount of volume. Team 3 is just going to be wide receiver U. They got Chase, Wilson, and A.J. Brown. They're going to like their wide receiver production. They're not going to like their quarterbacks, that's for sure. Prob goes with Henderson and Judkins. I love the stack of running backs there. Very smart team build, in my opinion. how he goes with Rome Odunze, somebody that I think is a breakout candidate, and he stacks him with Caleb Williams. I think you have a lot of potential upside. I think that Rome is going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Then we have Trippin or Travis or Ted should have gone 10 picks earlier. They should have gone. I think they either go late round 3 or potentially early round 4. Travis Hunter was a huge steal in my opinion. Kiffin Falls gets Breece Hall as their RB1. I love Breece Hall. I think he's going to have a return to dominance this season. I think he and Justin Fields are going to have a nasty run game. And Justin Fields actually does check down the ball at a pretty high rate, despite the idea that generally rushing quarterbacks, don't like to dump the ball off. He's actually an exception to that. So good pick there. Then 100% guaranteed gets Travis Hunter. I love Travis Hunter. I think he's an elite prospect coming out. Incredible ball skills. Should be very good this season. And I think the offense can be consolidated enough between the two, being him and Brian Thomas, for him to definitely put up not only consistent but high upside fantasy weeks for us. The CPU goes with Jordan Love. So I'm actually going to go with Brock Purdy here. And so I'm going to lock up my quarterback 1 and 2 with Stroud and Purdy to go with Neighbors and Thomas. Brock Purdy does not get any love. I actually picked him in the last mock draft, and it's just because I thought it was a good value. I mean, he's put up mid to low end quarterback 1 numbers over and over again, and he has a tremendous assortment of weapons in his offense. And I think they're going to pass the ball a lot more than they used to this year. And I think he's going to perform pretty well if he stays healthy. Now he has that long-term contract. Jordan Love is the faller of all time. With Jordan Love, it really depends on whether you think he's more so the quarterback that we saw at the end of 2023, or if he's more so the quarterback we saw in the first half of 23 and some of what we saw this past season. Only One Real gets Kyler Murray. I like the stack with Trey McBride. Pretty smart. Then we get Bobby going with Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is always underappreciated. You're going to get a lot of points from that man at the end of the season as they look to run and salt the clock out. Then Six Stomper gets McCarthy and Baker Mayfield. I love the upside. Baker Mayfield could be a top 5 quarterback again for sure. And then JJ McCarthy is in a fantastic situation. This tells you need to trade for Cam Ward. Yeah, Cam Ward. I love Cam Ward, man. I really wish they would have done anything to get him some playmakers to go with his offense, but I think he does have the ability to raise the talent of the people around him. And I think while he does have some Sam Darnold-like tendencies, he also has some Mahomes-like tendencies. So looking at who's available, T. Higgins, good pick with a ton of upside. So now this is pretty tough. You don't think playmakers matter much? So what do you think, Woke? The offensive line, they have made some improvements to it to be able to give him a little bit of time. I do worry that I would like for him to have, a dominant wide receiver 1 as a rookie. Calvin Ridley is a fine player, but I don't think he's particularly dominant. So I'm going to go for upside here and go with Derrick Henry. So if he is able to stay healthy, I could potentially have a top 3 running back to go with 2 wide receivers that I think could be top 5 for sure, and 2 upside quarterbacks. Oak Alonso, Caleb, Jaden May. You wouldn't guess which one is the worst rookie quarterback since Zach Wilson? Yeah, so it's not in that the playmakers just make, the quarterback instant, and they ensure that the quarterback is going to be good. It just makes it more tough. But I do agree that the thing with Jaden Daniels is Jaden Daniels was just insane. You know, that's rare. Not everybody is going to be Jaden Daniels. With Drake May, I think he performed fine, but I don't think he performed at this level that some people think. I think it's just incredible that he didn't have a terrible season given the dysfunction that was around him, and props to him for that. But Caleb Williams definitely has some tendencies that followed him to the NFL, such as an inability to stick to structure, trying to make too much happen, not getting the ball out in time. So definitely some issues there that I do think Ben Johnson is going to help negate through design and effective coaching, and actually watching film with his guys. So then we get CPU taking Laporta, 100% guaranteed, goes with Tyler Warren, tons of upside. I really like though that. What do you guys think about this? I think that having at least, we don't really know with Anthony Richardson whether he's going to be out for a while, but I think that the potential with Daniel Jones is a lot higher than that with Anthony Richardson. Yeah, and woke Anthony Richardson also had a ton of fantasy points per drop back, even though it was even more of a limited sample size. But I do like Drake May though. I love Drake May. I think he's great. So then we have Christian McCaffrey as the RB2 to go with Breece Hall. Kind of the same thing I did with Derrick Henry, where if he stays healthy and he returns to form, you could have a dynamic duo of Breece Hall and Christian McCaffrey. I like that. How he goes with RJ Harvey. We'll see what it ends up looking like with J.K. Dobbins. But, they don't spend second round draft capital on him to not use him whatsoever. And then Prob goes with James Cook. I love that too. I do love the build, and I think you're smart because you're building with a lot of running backs who are more than likely to going to get consistent volume, and all three of them are capable in the passing game. Team 3 finally gets a quarterback with Cam Ward. You better hope that Cam Ward is good. Otherwise, he's going to have some problems. Art gets Kyron Williams as RB2 to Bucky Irving. I love that for you. We'll see what you do at quarterback 2 potentially here. We'll see about that, though. And then we get Chase Brown to go with Jonathan Taylor. I think Chase Brown can definitely give you RB2 numbers. Potentially higher than that, depending on what we see in terms of workload with Zach Moss. Then you go with Caleb Johnson, who I think is going to give you Najee Harris plus in terms of fantasy output. Arthur Smith has already called him a volume guy. And then Art goes with Michael Penix as QB2. Definitely smart to get your quarterback 2 before they all are selected. Oh, and Woke, I agree that Richardson was a great bet, 100%. If he hits, he had the potential always to be the 101 in drafts if he was actually good. Then Prob gets George Kittle. I was really hoping he was going to fall to me, but you were smart and you took him before that could happen. And that concludes our potential difference-making tight ends, at least in the immediate future. So great pick there. How he gets Jordan Addison, somebody who, while their floor any given week is a little bit iffy, the ceiling any given week is obviously amazing. I mean, he had a 3-touchdown game and a 162-yard game, I believe, this past season. So if anything happens to Justin Jefferson, there's a ton of upside there. And if y'all haven't, if you could like the stream, I would really appreciate it. So then we get Kiffin Falls going with Jared Goff. So then he gets Goff as his QB2 with Jalen Hurts. Even though we could see maybe a little bit of regression with the Detroit offense, I still think it's going to be one of the best in the NFL. And Goff has been a top 10 quarterback in just about any format I can think of for the past 2 seasons at least. Potentially 3 if I'm not mistaken. Probably definitely 2 though. And I think he is one of the most underrated fantasy assets at the quarterback position personally. And he said, and that's why I like Cam Ward more than any quarterback after Stroud. Which is fair. Cam Ward has a ridiculous amount of upside, man. Ridiculous amount of upside. If he hits, he definitely has that gunslinger mentality. Pathway to obtaining a first-round startup player is so narrow, I'd never turn down that opportunity so I can draft Brock. I mean, sure, you can argue that you have an opportunity, but if he's not good, I think Brock Purdy is very good. Some of his advanced stats are very impressive. Um, he's consistently been a QB1 in terms of points per game, so I think I made the right choice personally, but I could understand a difference of opinion. So it's getting a little bit interesting there. This is a tough pick. A lot of the obvious picks are gone. This is tough. I think I'm going to risk it and go with the upside of Alvin Kamara. Definitely could backfire having two older running backs, but I think that Alvin Kamara could definitely return RB1 value this season. And then worst case scenario, I still have a young core with Neighbors, Thomas, Stroud, and Purdy. So I could potentially rebuild if I needed to, a mini rebuild of 1 year. There should be some running backs in 26 that are fine. So then we get only one real going with DJ Moore to pair up with T. Higgins and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love the trio of wide receivers. DJ Moore is a good player. Should get some yak opportunities in this Bears offense. Yab says the Brock pick screwed me out of Brian Thomas and I hate it. Well, I appreciate it, Howie. This will be the one draft where you don't get Brian Thomas Jr. Woke says he's fine. He'll also never be valued higher, though. I mean, maybe. It's potentially. I think if he puts up a pretty good season, there's a chance that he gains value. It's not like he's really obscenely old or anything. He's locked in long term. Part of the question was, is he even going to be in this situation long term? So then Bobby goes with Chuba Hubbard as his running back too. I think Chuba Hubbard is one of the most undervalued running backs for production. I think that he's probably going to see a regression in terms of opportunity in the passing game with the addition of Rico Dowdle there. But I still think he's going to be a very high upside play. And I think the team in general should be a little bit better. And I think he has a little bit more touchdown upside than we saw this past season. Then Six Stomper goes with Igbuka and Flowers. I think Igbuka is going to be your Roma Dunze, your JSN, where very talented player. The immediate future is a little bit iffy, but the long-term stack with Baker Mayfield, I really like that for you. I think that was a smart pick. I didn't even mention that you got Achane to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. So I like that build for you, and I like, say, Flowers. Then Bobby goes with Tyreek Hill. That was somebody I considered because if he returns to 2023 form, you get somebody with crazy amounts of upside. And it's kind of very risky, with Tua there as well. We'll see about Tua Tagovailoa and his health this season. Interesting here. We'll see what Only One Real does. So only one rule goes with George Pickens. I like that. He has a ton of upside in this Dallas offense. Um, I think he's going to see some of these ridiculous boom games. I do think his floor is going to be a little bit inconsistent, but I mean, he's your wide receiver 4 at this point. So great pick. Then I'm up right now. How worried am I about the Nick Chubb signing with Joe Mixon? So they didn't sign him to an expensive contract, but it does make sense that they could work him in and he could steal some goal line work potentially. Although Joe Mixon looked pretty good at the beginning of the season. In the latter half, he kind of trailed off, but I think he was playing through injury. Man, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go with James Conner here. And now he's definitely older. I think that I'm going to get a bunch of high-end production when he's actually playing. I think there's a ton of injury risk, some of the most injury risk of any running back that there is based on his history and his age. But I do think that there is a ton of upside when he does play, and I'm going to try to get a bunch of win now production to try to win it all this season. And I think I have 3 running backs that, when they're healthy, if they still stay healthy, could put up a ton of points. Then teammate goes Devontae Smith, 100% guaranteed up on the clock here. So he has Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott. Prescott, when he stays healthy, is a consistent top quarterback for us in fantasy, tons of upside. Then he goes with Waddle to be his wide receiver 3. With Jalen Waddle, he doesn't really see any movement. He's rather stagnant in the offense in the sense of there's no motion with his role. So he has to get the more difficult targets. But I think he's talented. I think there's obviously the potential for Jonnu Smith to be traded away. If that were to happen, that's one less guy in the passing game that you have to worry about, and their tight end room other than that would be laughable. So I think Waddle has the ability to be a lot better in terms of the output that he gets us. And we'll see if McDaniels can kind of transform the offense again. Teams kind of figured him out, and he didn't have 2, obviously, so that kind of hurt his output this past season. Then Kiffin Falls goes to TJ Hawkinson. So Hawkinson I actually think is another interesting guy. With Hawk, he's going to be another year removed from that ACL. I think we see a lot more production from him this season. I think it's kind of one of those things where you got to believe in JJ McCarthy, or you could potentially be having Hawkinson, get a little bit older without having a locked-in quarterback if you don't believe in McCarthy. But if you do, then I think you could see a big boom in production because, not that long ago, although it seems like a long time now, he was one of the best tight ends in fantasy, putting up massive numbers in stretches with Kirk Cousins. So now we got Howie on the clock. We'll see. He is not on right now, so we'll see if he ends up picking. I must say, I really like Prob's team a lot. I think Kiffin's team has a ton of upside as well. If McCaffrey stays healthy, I think I have a lot of upside if my old running backs stay healthy, but that's very questionable if they are able to. I like Stick Stomper adding Ibuka for the long term with Baker Mayfield personally. And Bobby could put up some massive points if Tyreek Hill stays healthy and returns to 2023 form. So y'all in the chat, who if you had to choose a Kansas City wide receiver for the long term, are you choosing Xavier Worthy or Rashi Rice at cost here? I'm curious what y'all think. Worthy, I've seen go a little bit higher than where he went at the 6'3" in this draft. Rashi Rice also is selected a little bit earlier than he goes in some drafts. I got him at the 412 in a startup not that long ago. But I'm curious what y'all think about those two. So Howie gets Jamison Williams to go with Jordan Addison, another guy kind of like with Addison where the consistency might not be there with him, but the big boom games are absolutely there with him. Then Prob goes with Olave. So that's actually his wide receiver 1. I think with Olave, if Shuck's good, that he could have a pretty good season. Obviously, it kind of hinges. But the thing is, if Shuck isn't very good, they only spent a second-round pick on him, and they potentially could perform really poorly as a team and be in position to be able to get a good quarterback. So we'll see. At this startup's price, Xavier Worthy art, that's fair. We'll see. Usually there wouldn't be this much of a disparity between them, but I definitely understand that thought process. Team 3 gets Colson Loveland. Colson Loveland's gonna get JSN at tight end, so I love him for the long term though, man. I love him into that Ben Johnson offense. He compared him to Sam Laporta, if that tells you anything. So Art's on the clock here. You got Penix and Daniels, McConkey, McMillan, Bucky, and Kyron Williams. We'll see what he does here. He goes with Bryce Young. So he locks up his quarterback 3. Bryce Young, 2 of those, I believe, 2 out of the last 3 games of the season put up ridiculous bonkers numbers. If he can continue to do that, you're going to be extremely happy with Bryce Young. I like that he's connected to Dave Canales. Then we get Matthew Golden and DK Metcalf. With Golden, I worry that he's going to be put into that Christian Watson vertical Z role in the offense off line of scrimmage, where the general catchability, that might not be a word, of the targets is questionable. But if he's moved around, actually treated as a real wide receiver 1, he has a ridiculous amount of upside in a LaFleur offense. DK Metcalf with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, we'll see how that works out. I think that having Rodgers there for the short-term immediate production is significantly better than whatever he was going to have, regardless as to who they chose to start on that team personally. So Art goes with Ricky Pearsall. I love Ricky Pearsall. Reception perception, somebody who I don't really take their rankings that highly per se, but the actual work of charting out the success of the routes I do value personally. They had him slotted as very successful. I thought he won more so with physicality than as much technique as I thought he was going to win with this past season. On one of those angle routes, he shoved a corner off and looked ferocious doing so. So that was impressive. And obviously had some big boom games, but started out pretty slow after being shot. Team 3 goes with Joe Mixon. Prob goes with Devontae Adams. I really like Devontae Adams for production this season. Older guy, but definitely tons of upside this year. Howie goes with Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy put up massive numbers with Jameis Winston. We'll see what he does without Jameis Winston, but I think, as your wide receiver 4, that's a good wide receiver 4 to have. Kiffin, I was really hoping Mike Evans was going to fall to me. That's a great pick. Then obviously you stack him with JSN and Drake London. You could get some real big time wide receiver production from this build. 100% guaranteed goes with Cam Skattebo. Cam Skattebo could definitely take over that backfield. Tyron Tracy was nothing special. He was fine. 4th round draft capital isn't insane, but at the same time, he has the ability to be a 3-down back easily. Then we have teammate going Jackson Dart. So if I go running back here, So I'm actually going to go with David Montgomery here. So I'm going to try to get a lot of win now production with a lot of volume in this on my team. And, everyone always thinks about it from the perspective, or at least I have. So this may be some bias on my part that, oh man, if Montgomery goes down, Gibbs has RB1 overall upside. And that is true. Depending on your league settings, he just did that this past season because Barkley sat out. But, if Gibbs goes down, David Montgomery has a ton of upside. We saw at the beginning of 2023, before they really integrated Gibbs into the offense, that Montgomery, had that, 30-something touch game for 100-plus yards and 3 touchdowns. Montgomery also has a ton of upside if something were to happen to Gibbs. I'm curious, anybody who's watching the live right now, what are your thoughts on Jackson Dart? Do you think that given that he's probably going to be able to sit at least the majority of the season, that you like Jackson Dart because of that? Do you like the fit with Brian Dable? Do you like that he at least has Malik Neighbors out there? Theo Johnson potentially coming back from that Lincecum injury. You a little bit worried? Quarterbacks selected in the latter half of the first round typically are a little bit iffy, historically at least. But every person is their own player. I mean, you can have 6th, 7th round picks on drafted players potentially being studs. So I'm curious what y'all think. Only one real getting Tua as his quarterback 2. Very risky. Tua, if he is able to stay healthy, though, definitely could put up top 12 to 15 numbers for sure. Bobby goes with Justin Fields. So, welcome. I'm curious, what do you like about Jackson Dart in particular? Do you like the fit in the offense? What is it about him? People say he really doesn't have any particularly dominant standout trait. But I've seen quarterbacks succeed and when they didn't have a particularly dominant trait. Brock Purdy is an example of that in particular, in my opinion. So Stick Stomper goes with Trey Harris. Trey Harris, I think he's going to be a little bit inconsistent. I think you're going to get kind of Mike Williams-like production eventually from him. He does have Mike Williams ahead of him, funnily enough, for the short term potentially. But I think you're going to see those big boom games, 6 for 102 touchdowns. But then I also think you're going to get those 3 for, 40 and nothing kind of games. But a talented player, a very good fit for the role that he's going to be asked to play as the vertical X in this offense for sure. So then we have Jalen Milroe going off the board. Tons of upside, man, with Jalen Milroe. Admittedly, maybe a little bit earlier than I would have selected him. But if that guy sees the field, I think you see potentially Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields-like numbers. I mean, if anything, if Anthony Richardson, while he did receive better draft capital, if Anthony Richardson, being as poor as he is as a real-life quarterback, can put up ridiculous numbers, Jalen Milroe can. One of the fastest quarterbacks that we've seen. Then Bobby's on the board right now. So historically not a high hit rate. Dart's okay. When you're throwing to Neighbors, it's hard to fail. Daniel Jones. Rest in peace to Daniel Jones. I want to give Daniel Jones some benefit of the doubt to be a serviceable bridge quarterback for the Colts, potentially. Their offensive line is significantly better, at least in my opinion, from what I can recall, than the Giants. Now, the Giants' offensive line was, missing their left tackle for some of the season, so that kind of hurt their ability to protect Daniel Jones. And then obviously they have a wealth of playmakers around him as well, and a good offensive mind in Shane Steichen. And another thing is, Daniel Jones is an asset in the run game, and so I really don't think that the Colts' offense loses too much. Is he Anthony Richardson on the ground? I don't think so, but at the same time, he's more than a nothing burger in terms of the production he can give you on the ground specifically. He was a cap casualty. He was a scout. He was a scout, safety team scout. Yes, he was. So So only one real goes with Jaden Higgins. So with Jaden Higgins, I really like. I was really worried before the draft that he was going to be forced to be a vertical X because he's very poor at separating down the field and against press coverage. However, he is not going to have to be because Nico Collins plays that position for the Texans. So he's going to be able to play offline of scrimmage in the slot potentially too. I think that they could flip Knoll and him in terms of slot and flanker. So I do think that Jaden Higgins is a good fit in the offense, given that he's not going to have to be asked to do something that he's not good at doing. As far as what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the shot at some upside with Chris Godwin. He was the wide receiver 1 for a little bit of the season before his injury. I need some rookies. I do draft quite a few rookies in general. When I do real startup drafts, I want players that can, gain a ton of value, and I just don't like drafting for win now old teams. But for the sake of this, I was going to try and win some, potentially go for the upside of winning. Whereas if it doesn't work, I'll just be able to reset. And the core of receivers and quarterbacks are young enough to where I wouldn't be too worried about it. So then we get 100% guaranteed going to Josh Downs. Josh Downs, another player I really like, very talented guy. If he could just get some security at quarterback, any semblance of consistency, he could be a very, very good asset for us. He's already a fine asset, and I like him. Then we have DeAndre Swift going to Kiffin. So with DeAndre Swift at this moment in time, he's by far and away their best running back in the sense of proven running backs. We don't really know what Monangai or Roschon Johnson are going to look like. We'll see if they add some competition. But he should get plenty of opportunity, and they should score quite a few points, I think, especially compared to this past season. Interesting. How he goes with Kyle Williams, somebody that the competition I don't think is very impressive in terms of, besides him at wide receiver. Stephon Diggs has the potential to be a really good wide receiver still. We'll see, though. He's kind of been a declining player the last couple seasons. Prob gets Matt Stafford. I was hoping he was going to fall to me. That did not happen. Good pickup by him to get his quarterback 3. I really like his team in general. I do worry about Olave and Adam. I don't worry about Adams personally. So then we get Art going to Tucker Kraft. I think Tucker Kraft is somebody that's grown on me. He was really efficient with limited volume, but he's so good after the catch that I think he has the kind of profile that we would want, where he could be a target hog in an offense. Matt LaFleur hates us fantasy players and doesn't want us to be happy, so we'll see if that happens. But very talented player. I was hoping that Courtland Sutton would fall. I love Courtland Sutton this year. The addition of Pat Bryant, I think Pat Bryant's more so a risk to Vele than Courtland Sutton, because Pat Bryant isn't adept at winning against press coverage particularly. And he doesn't really, his 9 route success rate is very low. Howie just does what Howie wants to do. So then we got Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is somebody that could potentially score a lot higher, given that he was playing through injury this past season. It really is a wide open offense there, in my opinion. I love Khalil Shakir, but he's really not your wide receiver 1, hopefully. Keon Coleman is going to be asked to be a vertical X again, I think. But, yeah. So then we get Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, somebody I think should get more volume than he gets, and he just does not get the volume he deserves. So Prob gets Mark Andrews. Interesting selection. I'm curious, if you're still watching Prob, selecting 2 tight ends here. I think that Andrews does have a lot of touchdown upside. And the landscape is pretty rough with tight ends in general. Yep, says Jerry Jeudy was wide receiver 3 in points per game after week 8. That's an interesting point of view, Yap. We'll see what he does with potentially worse quarterback play. Jerry Jeudy, 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns. Book it now. I would agree with AC here, Jameis Effect. I would definitely agree with that. I think Jerry Jeudy is a fine player, though. I think that, between him, Cedric Tillman. I mean, David Njoku's not a wide receiver, but I mean, he's probably the best receiver they have for sure. I'd think. We'll see what they do. We'll see if they're bad enough to be able to get a quarterback potentially this next season and have one actually work out for once. Now they have a bajillion guys who they're going to try to probably just throw out there, and we'll see how that works. So Art says, I think Andrews might have room for value increase similar to Kittle last season. There's a potential. See, while there's probably a ceiling to the amount of value you could potentially see an increase for because of the age, I could definitely understand that, and that could definitely be true. He succeeded with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. DTR. Mander is getting his chain snatched by Likely. Bro, I love Isaiah Likely. I'm a Ravens fan, let me tell you. Isaiah Likely is that dude. I think he's one of the best dynasty buys in terms of tight end specifically, at least. But most people are kind of hip to that, so good luck getting him for crazy cheap. Just depends. So Howie got auto-picked and he chose Travis Etienne. He is going to have an interesting build. I think that Travis Etienne could have a bounce-back year, potentially. I hope, as somebody that owns Bashal Tutin in two of my leagues, that they trade away Travis Etienne. But Travis Etienne in space is pretty good, and Liam Cohen has talked about getting him open in space. So I do like that. Kiffin Falls gets Sam Darnold. That was a good pick. I was really hoping Darnold was going to fall to me. Alas, that is not going to happen. Okay, so team 100% guaranteed goes to Bashal Tutin. If Travis Etienne is traded, 100% has a ridiculous amount of upside. People say it's this year's Buck Irving. He and Buck Irving aren't really that similar, but Bashal Tutin is one of the most explosive backs in the NFL right now. Now, as far as what I'm going to do here, put the Sam Darnold going off the board. Good pick by Kiffin Falls. I'm going to avoid quarterback 3 right now. See what there is. This is tough. I think I'm going to go with the upside. This one's a very tough pick. So many ways I could go with this. I'm going to go with David Njoku, a tight end that I think has the potential to be a top 5 option. I think the poor quarterback play that I project them to have this season could work to his benefit with easy targets. The tight end in the Stefanski offense is a lot of times the number one target. Same thing with what's his name in Arizona. They like to feature tight ends, and so I think I could get some good value here with him, even though he's a little bit older. James, bro, what was that? The upside of David Njoku is very high. It's kind of to the point where there's a bunch of guys I see as all the same, and I wanted to draft somebody that I think is a difference maker. So only one real gets Keon Coleman. I'm personally not high on him, and it's not because I don't think he's talented. I think he would be great as a big slot, and they want him to be a vertical X. He's not very good against press coverage and struggles to separate deep down the field. I think he would be very good as a big slot because he has ridiculous hands, and he's a lot better after the catch, and he's a lot more technically sound and crafty as a route runner than people want to admit. Bobby goes with Zach Charbonnet, tons of upside with him. Did he get Chuba? He did not get Chuba earlier. Interesting. 6 number gets Likely. I love Isaiah Likely. I think that could be a huge pick for you. I'm curious, AC, who would you have picked if you were me? I think there's a lot of players that are all good. And that it's kind of a lot of the same. Likely in Jonnu Smith. So Jonnu Smith, if he stays there, I love the upside. There were rumors, obviously, that he was going to be traded to Pittsburgh, which, yuck. No, thank you. Arthur Smith is even though Arthur Smith did give him more of a chance than Bill Belichick did, just that offense I would not want anything to do with. So hopefully he does not get traded there. You to take it a youngin. I have a trick later potentially, but I definitely understand the concept of that. A lot of times I draft way too much youth because I just don't want to be stuck with somebody that nobody wants to trade for due to age. But I went with a lot more of a win now build in this one. And if I were to stay healthy, I think I have a pretty good shot at winning this league in year one. Although, obviously, especially with players like James Conner, that's very hard to believe that he stays healthy throughout the duration of his season. Bobby's big board goes with Shakir. I love the pick of Shakir. I think he's a very consistent player. I think he's a very talented wide receiver in real life as well. This is Dynasty, so yes, and I understand. I understand that he is an older player. Only one real goes with Tony Pollard. I like that pick. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and lock up the backfield in Arizona with Trey Benson. That way I have somebody that I think will be the starter and get the majority of the touches if James Conner were to go down. And given that James Conner is very old and has missed a game in every single season, even though he played the full fantasy season, he did miss week 18 due to injury. I think that I'll get some use out of Benson. I think that Keon Coleman isn't very good at the role that he's being asked to play. I think he would be a much better big slot because he's just a lot more of your possession type of guy than a separator, especially deep down the field. But definitely understand that he is very poor at the role that they're asking him to play. I don't think, regardless of if you think he sucks or or if you think that he could be good, it just depends on the role in which he's being asked to play. I think we can both agree that he is not good at the X role that he's being asked to play and does not have the skills necessary to succeed in that specific role. I do agree that he has the potential to be a waiver or a roster clogger. There is the potential for that. Team 8 bites the bullet and takes Tyrone Tracy. Appreciate them for that. Shout out to Team 8. Jauan Jennings has a lot of upside. Aaron Jones is a good pick too. Lots of upside if he stays healthy. Jalen Noel. I like Jalen Noel. I think he is a very talented player. I think he can win as a flanker. I think he can win in the slot. I think they could potentially put him in motion on sweeps and plays like that. Yeah, definitely woke in terms of value, not play style. Absolutely. Romeo Dobbs is your X type of player. And absolutely. And Wan'Dale Robinson, obviously, he's not a short, pretty much slot only type of receiver like Wan'Dale. That's tiny for sure. Yeah, Jauan Jennings does have a ton of upside. It'll be interesting. What do you guys think about Brandon Ayuk? Do you think that he's cooked? Do you think it's just going to maybe take him a second? I mean, he's not even 28 yet. It was an ACL tear, but I don't know if it's. I'm personally a little bit optimistic for the long term. I think that it kind of sucks, and I don't really think he's going to give us the short term production. Prob goes with Besh, somebody that I think has the upside to be the number 2 in the offense, other than Brock Bowers. Second round draft capital, very high end, much better draft capital than I anticipated him getting. Geno Smith is a fine quarterback, so we'll see how he performs. Art goes with Jaden Blue. I've heard good things about Jaden Blue in terms of beat reporters, I believe it was. I saw it on the Dynasty Reddit. So obviously it's a relatively open backfield in my opinion in terms of there's really no established guy that I would be worried about. So if he's good, I think he could definitely take the role. Tyjae Spears, somebody that I worry about his ability to take on a lot of volume and stay healthy, but I think that he's talented enough in the passing game especially. And if Cam Ward is who some people think he could potentially be, and I think he could potentially be, I think that that offense could be a lot better and he could have more touchdown upside than he's displayed. Jacoby Myers is always criminally underrated. I think he's probably going to be in the number 2 in that Las Vegas offense for the short term, but there is the possibility of him. He is getting a little bit older, so there's the potential, obviously, that he's not going to be on the Raiders forever. But I think you're going to get some good win-now production with him. Wilk says he's tentatively in on 2026 Ayuk, but pretty sure he'll be bad this year. Definitely an understandable take. I don't even necessarily disagree. I think it's just who knows at this point. But I would definitely, if I had to lean one direction, I would completely agree with what your take is for sure, 100%. That's always a bad bet to be on the side of somebody having immediate production coming off of an ACL tear. So makes sense. Jaden Blue is Nyheim Hines. I do agree, talent over situation. No. Prob, you're not supposed to get Jordan Mason. No, that was a great pick. I think he sees some starts with Aaron Jones being ahead of him. And you are just sniping people left and right, my guy. Howie goes with the GOAT, Dante Thornton. Fun fact, he and Bobby's big board here, who is being covered up, he's team 11 in this, by the way, have a bet with Dante Thornton. If that guy if he improves drastically as a receiver, with his athleticism, he has a lot of upside. I'll be interesting when the comments come in the chat about that pick, though. With Calvin Ridley, I think Calvin Ridley, if Cam Ward is as good as advertised, does have a lot of short-term upside. He's obviously a little bit older, But I mean, at this point in the draft, you're either going for kind of rookie types that have maybe not the most established roles, but some upside, or kind of vet guys, no median. Jaden Blue get ready to earn 19% snap share. Interesting. Shout out to Woke, the troll that he always is. We appreciate you. Kelsey goes. We'll see if he has anything left in the tank. Michael Pittman goes. Woke says someone offered me 2/4 for Thornton, and I said no because of Howie. Hey, if Howie is right, he is going to be the absolute GOAT. 100% GOAT. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Up here, and it's getting, there's a lot of interesting. So I'm gonna lock up my QB3 with Geno Smith here. Somebody that I don't like the pick, like in the sense of I'm not excited about. Hey, I'm gonna get Geno Smith, but I think he has maybe 2 more years left in him. I think that in the short term he could provide solid QB3 startable numbers. I think the offense he has around him is going to be pretty good. And it was starting to get to the point where I just need a quarterback 3, so I'm okay during bye weeks. I'm curious, everybody in the chat, who do you think ends up winning the QB battle in Cleveland? I think there's reasonable arguments to make for just about anybody that's being evaluated in terms of their quarterbacks. I know a lot of people expected Shedeur Sanders to go, much earlier than he did. I thought he was not as talented as some people apparently did. Very accurate quarterback, though. Obviously, then you have Joe Flacco, who's very old. We've seen that in spurts he can give you good quarterback play, but he's old. Kenny Pickett has tiny hands. Then Dylan Gabriel is very short, so he would be an outlier if he hits. Arch. Yeah, shout out to Arch. Man, if he goes, oh man, if Arch goes to Cleveland, and I wouldn't mind that. There's definitely worse landing spots for a potential first overall pick. I do think Arch is going to be 2027 though, as opposed to 2026. But yeah, I'm curious if y'all had to guess this season, who do you think is going to win the QB battle in Cleveland? Najee Harris goes. Evan Ingram goes. I thought that was a good pick. If I didn't have David Njoku already, I was going to go Evan Ingram if I wouldn't have taken him. Deshaun comeback. Deshaun Watson, huh? Man, that contract, rest in peace. uh, Jalen McMillan goes off the board, somebody that now has two older, established vets that are very talented in front of him, as well as a first round rookie. Um, I'm a little bit lower on his outlook, but obviously, both Godwin and Evans could easily be injured, and then you're left with McMillan and first round pick, and so Igbuka, and so makes sense. Interesting to have both of them on the same team. Free Deshaun. I don't know about that. Elik Amander, somebody that has questionable hands, but one of these guys where that I definitely like the process of. You want somebody that's in an open. If you can't get somebody that's an established guy that you know is going to give you production at this point in your draft, shooting for somebody in an open room, that's how you get the theoretical chance at somebody like a Puka Nacua, somebody where there's just not a lot of established players on the offense and targets to where if he's good, he could definitely see a big role in the offense. Why the Jalen McMillan hate? So it's not necessarily that I don't like Jalen McMillan. It's that I think he's kind of buried in the offense, but I mean, there's still upside with him. It's not that I don't like him particularly as a player, though. But he did have a lot of touchdowns, and I think that was an unsustainable touchdown streak that is unrealistic, and I think was propping up his value. I 100% agree, Woke. See what Bobby does here. That's 100% right. I want Puka types, or at least the opportunity upside. So he goes with Marvin Mims, somebody that does have some upside. Obviously, there's been more competition added, but Bo Nix looked really good. He's an explosive vertical threat type, and I think that he could put up some massive points. I think if this was a best ball, that Marvin Mims would be a really savvy, especially in that setting, pick. Terrence Ferguson goes off the board. So looking at my team, I got Stroud, Purdy, and Gino. I'm not worried about quarterback. I got Henry, Kamara, Connor, Monty, and Benson at running back. So a lot of age there, but a lot of potential for win out production. Neighbors, Thomas, Godwin at receiver. I don't want to go running back here, but it's so questionable. This is hard. So I'm going to go with Devin Neal here. So the thought process is I have Alvin Kamara, and I think that Devin Neal is by far and away the second most talented running back on this team. So I want to handcuff him as well. With Devin Neal, I comped him to Le'Veon Bell in terms of the play style. He's probably not going to end up with a career like Le'Veon Bell, but very patient, very shifty, very good, extremely good vision. Some of the best vision in the class, and a more than capable receiver. So I'm not really worried. So then we get Cooper Kupp going to team 8. So with Cooper Kupp, obviously this is a CPU pick, so nobody actually picked him. I think he's pretty washed. If you looked at Matt Harmon released a video, it was either today or very recently at the very least, and his success rates against man, zone, and press were abysmal last season. Despite the high output in terms of volume and receptions, he was just not very good on a per route basis from a success rate perspective. So, like Matt Harmon actually said, they were trying everything they could to get him off the team as soon as possible. I think that kind of tells you what you need to know. What do you guys think, though? Do you think there's anything left in the tank for Cooper Kupp in Seattle? Yeah, I'm saying I went, unless I think he's talking to me, you went 5 running backs in a league where you only have to start 1. Yeah, with the running backs, yeah, they get a lot of, well, depending on who you get, I guess. But Henry, Kamara, Connor, and Montgomery should get a good bit of volume, all of them. And I want consistency with my team, a very good floor, and they all have a pretty decent amount of upside, especially for Monty too, if something were to happen to Jahmyr Gibbs. But I also don't know exactly. So he can work underneath still, Kupp can? It seems like running backs should be valued even less in this league setting. No, it's actually the opposite. You'll notice that Prob had the same idea to get Henderson, Judkins, Cook, and Mason, for instance. But yes. There are 5 flex spots, and that's exactly right. So you think, though, once again, he can work underneath still, Kupp? I mean, Sam Darnold, say what you want about him in terms of folding under pressure, but he can definitely hit Cooper Kupp. Woke saying age cliff for wide receivers is so rough that I don't know if he can even do that. I'm really worried about the success rates personally. You can feed him some volume, and we don't really care if he's very successful on a per out basis if they just get slammed with targets and scammy production. So we'll see about that. 100% guaranteed going with Rachaad White. Solid pass protector, elite receiving back. He did improve somewhat as a runner, not very talented as a runner in my opinion. But at this point, if something were to happen to Bucky Irving, he does have a lot of upside in terms of getting a lot of volume at least. J.K. Dobbins, plenty of upside if he's able to stay healthy. As a Ravens fan, it hurts my soul that J.K. Dobbins could never stay healthy. That poor man, very talented, never healthy. So, how he goes with Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman signs an extension in Baltimore. I'm curious, what do you guys think about the extension for Rashad Bateman? Personally, I know people were really excited, and I'm thinking to myself, what are we excited about? He's not somebody that you can really feel comfortable starting a lot of the time because of the inconsistency. He's definitely behind Zay Flowers in the pecking order. They added DeAndre Hopkins, who I think he's pretty washed. I don't think really that's a factor to consider. But, they have Mandrews and Isaiah Likely, and a lot of times in this offense, they see a ton of volume too. So I really think that it just limits his ceiling, and he really needs an injury to Flowers to really see a decent amount of volume. Yeah. But people were excited about it. Pat Bryant, oh, Prob, you get him too. You are killing me, Prob. Good pick. I love the long-term upside. I think he immediately replaces Devon Bailey in the slot. This guy is really good with the ball in his hands. Team 3 gets Jake Ferguson, obviously an auto pick. But I think Ferguson could put up some solid numbers. But he's probably more so relegated to the third option than the number 2 option in that offense. Art goes with Mason Taylor, somebody that I'm not particularly high on as a player. But in terms of getting the draft capital, being reasonably athletic, and being probably the number 2 target in the offense, you could see quite a bit of volume. Yeah. Rashad Bateman, that guy getting extended in Baltimore. So I really like the value you got with Tyler Shuck here. I think Guerendo has a ton of upside as well. Injuries are a big issue with Guerendo over and over again, but at this point, I mean, you're just getting somebody that, could give you spot starts of pretty good production. Wanted to grab Torrey Horton instead of Bateman. You can probably get Torrey Horton here if you want him. Javonte Williams, if we see another year after that gruesome multi-ligament injury and he performs and takes over the volume role and the goal line role in this offense, you could see some touchdown upside. You got Blue right. Yep. So you're obviously trying to get control of that backfield. There could be a lot of point scoring there. Team 3 goes with Diggs, CPU pick. We'll see what Prob does here. And he says, I'm lost. Why is Coker going ahead of poor wide receivers? So with Coker, there's just no draft capital. When I think about it, I think that McMillan is generally going to be an X, but I think he sees some slot work as well, and he sees some movement. Then I think Leggett is going to be your Z off line of scrimmage. I think you're going to put him in motion, have him run those horizontal routes across, those crossers and the like. Then you have Adam Thielen. He's getting older. Yeah. Coker's fine. Like, I think he's a talented player. He was somebody that I was telling people to get because he was free, and he had some very good athleticism, and it was a very poor wide receiver room this past season, and so there was some upside. Now, it didn't really translate into insane production, but considering you got him for free, that was awesome, right? Tough decision, Prob. You're done sniping all the good players, and now you're going to have to figure out who you're going to snipe this time. He was very efficient. Like I said, I think he's a good player. Yeah. He is a good player. The real question is, why hasn't somebody snagged the GOAT, Quentin Johnston? So Prob goes on auto pick, selecting Dylan Sampson. You got Judkins earlier, right? Yeah. So I mean, you're locking up the backfield. Dylan Sampson was somebody that I was a little bit lower on, but from a process standpoint, securing the backfield, you still got 4th round draft capital. I mean, they took, from the thought process of, all right, they selected Judkins in the 2nd round, and so they just replaced, Nick Chubb with Judkins, and then they said, Well, let's still draft another one in Samson. They obviously had a pretty high grade on him if they were going to take him in the 4th round after already taking Judkins. Thielen and Leggett are the faces for surmountable wide receivers. Yeah, definitely. Especially Thielen being older, that makes sense. With Leggett, I think they're going to potentially try to at least somewhat force him to see some kind of volume in this offense, given that they spent a 1st-round pick. I did not like the pick at the time. A 5th-year breakout. Yeah. Darnell Mooney. Oh, that was a really good pick. Kiffin Falls. Definitely a good pick. I was looking to get Mooney here in a couple picks because the people are sleeping on the decent upside that he possesses. Penix can sling it too. We didn't really see enough of a sample size to really know what he might look like with Penix as opposed to Cousins, but with Cousins, he was cooking. I think he's better as a flanker running those horizontal routes across the field, off the line of scrimmage, not being forced to be their X. Because yikes. Rashid Shaheed, somebody that I think could definitely come back. With Tyler Shuck, I don't know about the fit specifically with Shaheed in particular, but Shaheed was incredibly efficient on a limited target volume this past season, like ridiculously efficient. They're done. Mooney, go to pick. I like that pick. They're done with the Pitts experiment, and Penix is good. I don't know about Penix being good. I want to see more of a sample size of play from him. But I don't, I disagree necessarily either. I just don't know. I want to see more from him. But the Pitts experiment, give him to a new team, please. All right. So taking a look at the team, I got Neighbors, Brian Thomas, and Godwin. So I'm a little bit lacking at receiver, but I also only need to start one. So I'm not particularly worried about that right now. I'll snag some guys later. Somebody that I really like. All right, so I'm going to go with DJ Giddens here. Now, with DJ Giddens, Jonathan Taylor has missed time in each of the past 3 seasons, despite his finish as a top 12 running back this past season in a full PPR setting. He still missed time. He's getting older. I expect DJ Giddens to be able to, at times, start. I was very high on him. He reminded me a little bit of David Johnson in his kind of upright running style, his explosiveness. He's incredible in the receiving game for somebody his size. Ray Davis, the next pick. I thought about Ray Davis too. Good pick. If James Cook were to hold out, you get Buffalo's RB1. So definitely a good pick there. I think we're probably just going to see a bunch of running backs come off the board here after the Mooney and Diggs picks. Oh, Jalen Royals. I love that pick too. Jalen Royals, I was very high on as a prospect, and I think that he, if he could just see some volume, I think he's very good. I think he could fit nicely for the Rashee Rice role. So we'll see how Rashee Rice ends up looking. Jarquez Hunter goes off the board. Good pick. If he sees the field in that Rams offense, I like the upside with him. Joe Milton. We'll see about whether he gets any run. He did look decent in limited action in that Week 18 game, I believe it was. Braylon Allen. I'm very low on Braylon Allen. I just don't think he's very good personally. But I've had somebody else. I was talking to Prob actually, and Prob is higher on Braylon Allen, so it's potentially some kind of bias on my end. I might have to rethink that and look further into Braylon Allen to see if maybe there's something I'm missing. Because I respect the opinion of Bobby and Prob. Brenton Strange, somebody that could see a good bit of volume. I think it's going to mostly be consolidated between Hunter and Brian Thomas, but to act as though in a Liam Cohen offense that we can't see a third guy get some kind of volume, I think that there's definitely a opportunity for him. So I'm going to go with Jalen Wright here, somebody that I think is talented. He's actually, there was a report that just came out where he put on 6 pounds of muscle, I believe. And he's obviously, everybody is, but he says he's serious for whatever that means about trying to get some work this year. If Devon Achane, who's a generally smaller guy, goes down, I think Wright has the potential to see quite a bit of explosive runs. He's a very, very good size adjusted athlete. And I would say he was maybe a little bit underwhelming, but did show some flashes. And for a lot of these games where he was receiving volume, they didn't even have Tua Tagovailoa, so the quarterback situation was in disarray, and nobody could run the ball in that situation. So I don't think he got really a fair shake. But I could definitely understand if somebody's not particularly high on him. I think there's a lot of upside, though. Teammate gets Ramondre Stevenson. He finally goes off the board. Jalen Coker goes off the board. Woke can finally rest secure, knowing that Coker is off the selection of available wide receivers. So anybody in the chat, what are your thoughts on DK Metcalf's production this season with Rodgers? Do we think that he's a wide receiver 3, maybe sneaks in as a wide receiver 2, maybe with some touchdown upside? I'll be curious what y'all think. I think that the range of outcomes is pretty extensive. I like the pick of Jordan James. I think he's a talented player. I think that, with McCaffrey and Garendo ahead of him, that you could not ask for 2 more historically injury-prone types of players. So there is definitely, while he is an RB3 technically, I think there's a path easily to him getting some volume. I love the Daniel Jones pick, Prob. Tons of rushing upside in that Shane Steichen offense. Let's see what Art does here. Connor Ryan says wide receiver 18 to 24 for Metcalf. I think, you're thinking probably some of those big boom weeks with kind of inconsistent production. Rodgers throwing back shoulders to Metcalf 6 times a week. Yeah, I mean, let's think about this. They have Pat Freiermuth. We didn't really get to see anything from Roman Wilson, but Roman Wilson doesn't profile to be an RB or a wide receiver 1, really. Calvin Austin. Yeah, I think they'll be doing quite a bit of running, and then I think around the goal line they're going to say Aaron Rodgers rather is going to say Caleb Johnson. I'm sorry, but I need to stat pad here, so let's throw the ball to Metcalf and try to score some touchdowns. And I say that as a very salty Garrett Wilson owner in one league. who watched as Devontae Adams was force-fed targets over and over again. Because, while this is probably not true, Garrett Wilson dropped one pass that was intercepted, so God forbid we ever throw the ball to him again. Yab says DK finishes between 20th and 16th best wide receiver next season. So you're thinking a mid, kind of a midish to maybe a little bit of a lower wide receiver too. Could definitely happen. I think purely touchdowns are going to dictate that. Art getting Leggett here. I think that Leggett is a more limited player in the sense of like his actual, in terms of his role on the field. But I think that, Dave Canales can get him schemed touches. And I think in a straight line, he is blazing fast. So he does have some upside in terms of yak ability. I think he's just, once again, going to need to have schemed touches. But if you're going to spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver, you should probably try to get him involved. So we'll see what they end up doing with him. Elijah Arroyo, second-round pick by the Seahawks. I believe they were saying about him that he can run an extensive route tree. We'll see what he ends up doing this season. He was a lot of times comped to the player that he's potentially replacing in Noah Fant. So we'll see about that fit and see kind of if he's potentially going to be able to supplant Noah Fant. Interesting that they would still keep him on the roster while they drafted him. So maybe he's going to be kind of those, maybe like a Trey McBride type in the sense of kind of blocked year one, but potentially get some a lot more play in year two. Blake Corum. Yeah, so we see Jarquez Hunter go at the end of the round 14 and Corum go at the beginning of round 16. So with Corum, he kind of translate more so to a direct replacement for Kyren Williams playstyle wise, whereas Hunter's much more athletic. So it'll be interesting, in the event of an injury to Kyren Williams, which one, because Corum did get third-round draft capital as opposed to, I believe Hunter was a fourth-round running back. So we'll see who gets the workload should something happen. Christian Kirk, I think that's a sneaky pick by Art. I think he's definitely going to start for the Texans, and I think people forget about that. But I think he's kind of your one-year rental, but for win-out production, I think you could definitely do worse at this point in the draft. CPU gets Rico Dowdle. Prob on the clock here. Roman Wilson. So yeah, he's kind of one of those forgotten guys where it's not that, he didn't do anything and he had the entire opportunity of an entire season to get something done. He just missed the entire season. I think he played, like one snap. So if we've learned much, that wide receivers, in terms of Pittsburgh, is pretty good at drafting wide receivers in general. So maybe he's a hit. No reason to disbelieve per se. We didn't really get to see him play. Ben Sinnott's another guy that I think is talented, and I love the upside in Jaden Daniels' offense with Ben Sinnott. It sucks that he's going to get Trey McBrided again by, of course, Zach Ertz, everybody's favorite rookie tight end killer. But he has the skills to be a very good yak guy, and I think he's very versatile. I think he's one of the most, coming out in that draft class, he was one of the most versatile tight ends that can be moved all around. He can be, a fullback, a tight end, a slot receiver. I really like Ben Sinnott as a talent personally. Marshawn Lloyd, another guy that, just like Roman Wilson, he was just injured the whole year this past season, so we didn't really get to see him. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Will Colonzo is very low on Marshawn Lloyd, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's fine, and I think that if Josh Jacobs were to go down, I just want somebody that's getting the volume in that LaFleur offense, because I think you're going to get a lot of it, and I think you're going to score a lot of fantasy points if something were to happen to Jacobs. Oh, 100% guaranteed taking Harold Fannin. That was what I was going to do that I mentioned a long time ago, and I was going to get him here. Where Harold Fannin, I comped him to actually David Njoku before the draft. David Njoku in Evan Ingram's body. Incredible yak tight end. Probably not your big enough to be your traditional type of tight end, but I think that Stefanski could definitely have a plan for him. I think he could be a great slot receiver. A very talented player. So I'm actually going to go with some upside here at tight end, and I'm going to get Theo Johnson. So Theo Johnson had the Linsfranc injury. I do worry potentially a couple years down the line that he maybe sees a decline in athleticism. We've seen that happen with Travis Etienne, which it may or may not be related specifically to that injury, but I believe I read somewhere on X, if I'm not mistaken, that there is a decline in athleticism with a serious injury to that. But when we think about Theo Johnson and this Giants offense, they have Malik Neighbors. They re-signed Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. They're going to throw the ball to somebody. And I think that Theo Johnson could be a very sneaky play. And I think he's very talented, especially as a seam stretching tight end. I think he has a lot of upside in the sense of I think he could produce a lot more with less volume than some tight ends can. So then we get Will Howard. If something happens, Aaron Rodgers, we saw, with the Jets just as soon as 2023, where basically one snap and he's gone practically. So there is the opportunity for Will Howard to start at some point potentially. Then Ollie Gordon, somebody else I was going to try to get because of the potential upside. If he gets a goal line role, see some volume. Potentially with an injury to Achane, so that was a good pick by Bobby for sure. A.D. Mitchell, somebody that's criminally underrated in terms of public perception of his talent and upside, but just has had a terrible fit with quarterback play, a ton of competition. Alec Pierce, who I think does a lot of things that he does well as well. Somebody that I think is going to be buried, but it's not really his fault. He probably had 500 to 600 unrealized air yards and 5 to 8 touchdowns this past season that A-Rich and Flacco missed him on. Mitchell could have been viewed much more highly. It's essentially the antithesis of Jalen McMillan, in my opinion. Krosky Merritt, great pick for the upside. I think there's nobody special ahead of him. Wan'Dale, good pick for scammy upside. I love the Brashard Smith pick as well, if he sees that Jerick McKinnon role. So thoughts on Brian Thomas ceiling being capped due to Hunter pick? I'm afraid top 3 dynasty wide receivers now off the table. I don't think so at all. I think that we saw in a Cohen offense as soon as this past season that Chris Godwin was the wide receiver 1 and Mike Evans was producing top 12 numbers. I think that Brian Thomas, so let me make this pick real quick actually so I don't talk myself out of getting somebody. I think at this point I'm just going to take Tillman for some potential volume as their starting X. So with Brian Thomas, though, I think the offense is going to be heavily consolidated, and this is just my opinion. I could be wrong, but we saw that a lot of times the offense was consolidated mostly to Evans and Chris Godwin with Cohen this past season. And so Brenton Strange is a fine tight end, right? But I don't think he's commanding a target volume over Brian Thomas, who, by the way, the only receivers to have 1,200 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns besides Brian Thomas this past season are Randy Moss, Odell Beckham Jr., and Jamar Chase. He is only the 4th wide receiver to do that as a rookie. He is very talented, and he's incredible. His ability in the screen game is ridiculous given his size. He breaks tackles. He has good vision in the open field, blazing speed. You can put him in motion. I love him. And even with Travis Hunter, I think Travis Hunter, I compared him to maybe a more athletic Garrett Wilson, but with somehow even better ball skills. I think that they can both peacefully coexist with a consolidated target share between the two of them. Kind of rambling on, but I don't think the ceiling is capped at all, personally. I think that we see better things from Trevor Lawrence as well under the tutelage of Liam Cohen. I mean, Liam Cohen got Will Levis drafted. Liam Cohen's been successful essentially everywhere he's gone, and the luck could run out potentially, but I'm a little bit higher, I guess, than some people are on Trevor Lawrence. I think he's fine. One fact is Trevor Lawrence has one of the best deep balls in the NFL, and that is a fact. Slot role for BTJ would be better than Evans' role, IMO. So Brian Thomas has actually... So in terms of if you're talking about from a production standpoint, I do agree because you would probably see. So it's a little bit more complicated. We don't know that we're going to see a cut and paste offense because they're different players and different skills, personally. But if it is to be essentially the same offense copied and pasted, I do agree that that would be a better role for fantasy because I think you'd see more volume as the slot in this offense. But I think that he and Hunter are going to be worked around. Travis Hunter is incredible against press coverage. He can win all over the field. Same with Brian Thomas Jr. Long story. I could talk about these guys forever, rambling, but very very talented players. I don't think the ceiling is. I think the ceiling is lower than it would have been without Travis Hunter there, but I think that he could still be a top 3 wide receiver for sure. He would probably have to have a little bit of touchdowns go his way this season, but I don't think it's out of the question. So yeah, 100% guaranteed. So he missed his pick, and so he gets Jonathan Brooks. With Jonathan Brooks, for what it's worth, I think he's a good value because, while yes, 2 ACL tears does suck, I think there's the potential for him to have somewhat like a J.K. Dobbins type of deal where here and there he could give you good upside. I think he's a talented player, but obviously you're not getting anything from him this season. So I would. It just kind of sucks for him. Got to feel bad for him because he's a good dude too. Tesla, the Tesla pick, they traded up, I believe, to get him in the 3rd round. I know they got him in the 3rd round. I'm not sure what they envisioned for him, but he's a size speed freak. But definitely one of the best size adjusted athletes in this draft class. Obviously, in a high scoring offense. We'll see. Maybe they view him as potentially a Jameson Williams replacement long term, in the sense of a field stretching guy with ridiculous speed. But who knows? With Ty Felton, somebody that I am very high on. I love Ty Felton. It sucks that he's going to be at best a wide receiver 3. I do think he beats out Naylor. He's incredible in the short area of the field. He separates very, very well. Has insane releases off the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he dances a little bit and it gets him kind of in trouble. And he just doesn't have the deep speed despite running in the high 4.3s in his combine to stack vertically down the field. But he's okay at those posts, but less so the 9 routes in particular. But he could be a very good yak type of guy. And so I like him as a prospect. Taj Brooks. Somebody that I like him as a very good value. I love that pick, Prob. You stay taking a bunch of good players. The thing, and I don't want to say this that I have any personal vendetta against him, but with Chase Brown, for instance, I think that people are conflating him receiving a lot of volume with him being a supremely talented player. I think he's a fine running back, but they didn't want to just give him 20 rushes and 10 receptions a game. Zach Moss was hurt, and they just didn't have any depth to give anyone else the ball to. So I do think that he is the most talented back potentially on that team. But I do think we maybe see some regression in volume for him. But I'm sure people disagree with that. But nonetheless, he was not very efficient. The advanced stats do not like him, but he's fine. Team 3 goes with K. Dotton. Trevor Etienne, I do like that pick. In Carolina, if something happens to Chuba Hubbard, obviously they have Rico Dowdle, but I do think that Trevor Etienne does have some upside, and especially when you're getting him this late. Xavier Restrepo, undrafted, horrible 40. He was potentially injured though, but the connection with Cam Ward is very underrated. I do think that out of all these undrafted kind of guys, that he's walking into a room where there's just, besides Calvin Ridley, nobody that I would necessarily worry about. It could be anybody's game. Do you think McBride will stay getting fed even with MHJ hype? So here is why I do believe in McBride getting the volume. I don't know why I can never remember Drew Petzing. Drew Petzing is the offensive coordinator. So in the Petzing and Stefanski type of offenses, the tight end is a featured asset in the passing game with designed touches and the like. And so I think that the integration, it's the idea of the offense to get the tight end fed early and often in schemed touches. So I think that he is going to continue to feast regardless. Now, as far as if Arizona moves on for Kyler, do you think he's going to return that, hold that round 2-3 start value? If they move from Kyler and they don't have an option, an incumbent player, I worry about his potential perceived value. But he's one of these guys where if you just have a quarterback that is capable of dumping off passes, this guy can do that. And we've seen sometimes having a bad quarterback, if they're just able to complete short passes in the short passing game, can be beneficial in terms of it limits the offense from being able to do other stuff. So they just do what they can. That is a potential thing. Now, if there's a coaching change, specifically with Petzing, that is where there is a lot of potential for Marvin Harrison to be featured more so on these crossing routes, these dig routes, routes where he's actually able to separate, as opposed to having him run these 9 routes and fades as a strictly vertical sacrificial X. It hurts me inside that he was used this way because, and think about it, Marvin Harrison, while being, at least in my opinion, used in the most incorrect, limiting way imaginable, still put up 885 and 8 touchdowns. Think about that. That's really not a bad season. Just because Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Puka and Chase exist, there's plenty of other good players, like, for instance, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who just was not in a great situation to produce right away, and then as soon as given the opportunity, he did. Kind of rambling on here, but I do think that Marvin Harrison Jr. does deserve the hype. I think he's very good. And with MHJ, I think that we see around 1,000 to 1,100 yards and around 10 touchdowns, give or take. And so I do think that he has the potential to be a solid wide receiver too, with, if he is better than that and gets more volume and isn't limited in his role so much, better production for us. But you were really asking for McBride. I think that there's definitely the opportunity. It just depends on how successful they are. Can Kyler turn the corner at this stage of his career? It's kind of iffy. I love the pick of Nungai. It's an ambiguous backfield besides DeAndre Swift, so he could definitely see. Now, we don't know. Ben Johnson said he's going to kind of build the offense from the ground, and it's not going to be a carbon copy of what we saw in Detroit. But if he does indeed run a 2-back system, there is the opportunity for Monangai to get the goal line David Montgomery type of role, maybe some kind of usage like that. I like Monangai. So Dynasty 12-man Superflex, I was offered. Yeah, sorry, I know I was rambling for like 20 minutes on that. So Easy says Dynasty 12-man Superflex, I was offered Jalen Hurts from Mahomes and Brian Robinson. Thoughts? What are your league settings in the sense of, I think I would still take Jalen Hurts over those two. Your QB room is Mahomes, Mayfield, and JJ McCarthy. I like McCarthy as your quarterback 3. There's a lot of upside. I love Baker Mayfield. He's producing incredibly well. And your running backs are... You'll be fine without B-Rob. So Kyron, Achane, Bucky, and Montgomery and Hampton, you're fine. The depth at running back doesn't matter. I would take the Hurts side of that. This is rough, man. I already took Theo and then Njoku. I'm going to take Damian Martinez, somebody that I'm high on as a talent. Kind of sucks that he's going to be the RB3 in Seattle. I comped him kind of to a James Conner in play style. Now, if he's has James Conner's career, I'll be pretty surprised. But I think he's a very talented player, and I think he has good size adjusted athleticism, and I think he's powerful enough to, if he were to see any kind of bell cow roll due to injury ahead of him, that he does have the build to sustain it. But if he does get that kind of opportunity, I would sell immediately. So, yeah, figured slight upgrade plus younger QB when running back is irrelevant. Yeah. I mean, you're gaining essentially. So Mahomes, kind of goes at times, depending on the league setting, in the late first round to potentially early second round of startup picks. Like in this league, he went, and this startup doesn't necessarily mean anything. He went 111, whereas Hurts went 106. When you think about it from a startup pick perspective, do you think that you could just trade in general the, say, 111 for the 106, and all you have to do is just give up Brian Robinson? I would tell somebody to, I would tell them that I'm not interested, is the PC way of saying that. I'm going to go with somebody that I think is talented. I think Isaiah Davis. So with Isaiah Davis, and by the way, we got Mike Gesicki going to Bobby. I love that pick. I was considering Gesicki. Boutte, I like that pick for the upside as well. Good pick. There is always the chance. He had I believe he had 2 really solid games this past season. The situation was abysmal. Will Shipley, we'll see. Maybe, Saquon Barkley is a decent candidate to potentially see some injury. So there is opportunity that he goes down, and if he goes down, who's going to be the guy to replace him? I like the pick of Noah Gray as well. Iosivas, I think he's a talented player. It sucks that he just is in a situation where they have so much talent around him. I think that, the pick out of Princeton was a very good one for the Bengals in real life. Going back to the pick I made of Isaiah Davis, though, they've talked about using a committee. I'm not worried about that. I think Breece Hall is the guy to own easily. If they do trade Breece Hall, though, like there's been some rumors of, I think that Isaiah Davis is better than Braylon Allen personally, but I've had some people disagree with that. I think that Davis was very efficient. I think he's decent enough in pass pro, and he's a pretty good receiver, and he's a good size. Let me rephrase that. He's a decent size adjusted athlete. I think he looks good enough on the field to where I would prefer him. Then we get team 8, the CPU going with Quentin Johnston. Do you guys? This one is one of the ones I find the most interesting. Can you guys, if you're watching this, what do you think about Quentin Johnston? Do you think after last season we had 3 games of 4 or 5 targets, no receptions, and multiple drops, but then we just had that random 13 for 168? Do we think that there's any hope for Quentin Johnston? Maybe for another team. I know that they drafted Trey Harris. They have Ladd McConkey, so probably not going to do too much in the short term. But do you think there's any hope? I'm personally completely out. I was always out. I never drafted him. I thought he was just a horrible bet. I'm 5'9", and he plays smaller than me on the football field. Ronnie Gadsden was a banger pick. I love Gadsden. I worry about opportunity with him, but in terms of talent, I mean, this guy put up over 900 yards, if I remember correctly, this past season in college, and tight ends don't generally do that much. But I'm curious, y'all, do you guys think that Quentin Johnston is cooked or not? Long term. Like, if he was to get traded, do you think there's any hope? Whittington definitely could see some volume. If there was an injury to Adams or Puka. With Puka, though, I think that there's definitely a chance. He does get injured. Alec Pierce, somebody who was incredibly efficient. If this was a best ball league, I would love this pick even more. Consistency is always going to be a thing with him, though. Team 3 gets Aaron Rodgers eventually. Art on auto pick gets Romeo Dobbs. So with Romeo Dobbs, situational X receiver. This was an auto pick though by Art. So yeah. So I believe this is Six Stomper. He said has high hopes for QJ, but he wilted. All right. Sorry, I had to head out, but I'm now here, fellas. Bobby, what's up, Bobby? QJ is beyond cooked. I forgot to turn off the oven. Yeah, I'm on the negative side of the opinion on Johnson as well. I just never saw it. I mean, this guy's best highlight, at least in my opinion, from what I saw, as a collegiate prospect, was a shallow cross where he made like a one linebacker miss before just running up the sideline untouched for a touchdown. I mean, the guy's 6'4" and plays like he's 4'5". Yeah. I don't know. And he's not even a good size adjusted athlete either. Just very questionable pick by the Chargers. Mario Douglas, he has the potential to have that slot. He made two guys miss. Oh, did he? Two guys miss. Sorry. I don't want to be disrespectful to Quentin Johnson here. I love the Phil Maffa pick. That Dallas backfield is open, and if Maffa, I'm not particularly high on him, but with running backs, any RB on at 53. Demario Douglas, I think, could see some decent volume. I think he's a fine slot receiver. Cole Kmet, I think, obviously was an auto pick, so Art didn't really pick him. He's cooked until he gets traded potentially. Hunter Henry, I think, is a fine pick by the CPU. I don't think he'll be a difference maker with the addition of Stephon Diggs and Kyle Williams, who I'm very high on. Prob is up. We'll see if he snipes and breaks by Art again with another good pick. So blue is horrible MIO and Maffa could be solid. Yab says, I think Maffa is better than blue. I'm sure Art would want to fight you. That was him who picked him, right? Yeah. Art would probably want to fight you as he took Javonte and him before. But probably Javante's backfield, even though he's cooked. Potentially. I mean, do we think that they just try to keep forcing him the ball if he does not look good? I don't know. They might move on. Jermaine Burton, what could have been. There's been reports that he's getting his head out of his butt, and if so, that's good. Josh Palmer, that's actually a sneaky pick, Howie. Besides Khalil Shakir, I mean, they have Keon Coleman. It's not really inspiring to me. Dalton Kincaid's mid too. So I like him, especially at this value. I'm here trying to find bad film on guys like McMillan, Ibuka, and Hunter. I can't explain how hard that is. It is hard. Ibuka is essentially JSN to me. Travis Hunter is like a more athletic, better ball skills, Garrett Wilson. And then I comped Ted McMillan to Brennan Marshall. And yeah, so I'm very high on him. I agree. It is hard. with some of these guys, it's really more so, right, Bobby? What are their limitations? With Tet, can you stack vertically? Not consistently. Ibuka, are you going to be a limited player, but you're very good at what you do? And with Travis Hunter, I don't know what the negative is. The biggest negative to him for me was, is he going to play receiver enough before the draft? But with Jermaine Burton, really talented guy. Some people had him as a first-round grade. He just kind of has character issues, but just shooting a shot at some upside here. Zach Ertz, good win now tight end, solid value. Teammate goes Dalton Schultz. I'm on the clock here. I'm going to go with Khalil Mullings, somebody that I'm not particularly high on, I guess, but, with Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard ahead of him, I think that with some luck, he could potentially see some work. And at this point, I'm just trying to find running backs at this point that can just kind of do something. With who? Tetroa McMillan, you're talking about with stacking vertically? It's not really that he can. It's just, is it going to translate right? And then can he do it consistently enough for them to want him to be doing that? I love the Chimera DK pick, and I love the Arian Smith pick. So I'm going to take a look at y'all's teams real quick before I head out. I appreciate each and every one of you who is in the chat or watching this or participating also for helping out. It's always more fun when we don't have a bunch of CPU picks and we get to do this, guys. I'm going to be experimenting with all different sorts of different constructions of in terms of starting numbers, different settings there, redraft and dynasty as well. So we got Josh Allen, Herbert, and Shuck, solid quarterback room. I love the high-end starters there. At running back, you got, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, Caleb Johnson, Spears, Garendo, Corum, Manungai, and Maffa. Some upside there. Rashi Rice, Golden, Metcalf, Sutton, and Myers. I'm a little bit lower on your wide receiver room personally, but definitely a lot of upside if everything breaks right with Rice and Golden. And then we got Art with Jaden Daniels, Penix, Bryce Young, and Sanders. That's interesting. I love the Jaden Daniels pick. I think you're a little bit weak at quarterback, questionable at quarterback too. But Bucky, Kyron, Blue, kind of weak at running back in my opinion as well. I love the pick of Tucker Kraft though. And then Ladd McConkey and McMillan is great. I like the Pearsall pick. Jaden Reed, if he could just get some volume, would be great. Mason Taylor should get some volume too. So you are Kiffin Falls, Connor Ryan. So moving on to Prob. Looking at Prob's team, I'll get to yours though. Moving on to Prob, you got Lamar Jackson, Drake May, and Stafford. I love the quarterback room. Trevion, Judkins, and Cook. Mason, I like as an upside play. Dylan Sampson is kind of your handcuff. Taj Brooks, I love your running back room. Kittle, Andrews, I like the upside there. And JT Sanders, I like that. Wide receiver, obviously, is pretty weak. If Olave, ends up looking good, then and stops going to the hospital, there's a lot of upside untapped there. Devontae Adams should give you really good win-out production too. Jack Besh is a very talented player. We'll see if he can carve out a role as being maybe better than the third option. We'll see if he can get up to 2. The future is probably a lot brighter with him too, because they could probably get rid of Myers. Pat Bryant, I really like as a slot for them. I think he replaces Vele immediately. So I like your team. Howie getting Brock Bowers unintentionally. Kind of sucks for him. Good player, but bad value. But he recovered with Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams. I like them as bounce back candidates. And then he did not get a quarterback 3, so Howie, be careful with that. Running back room with Harvey, Etienne, Jordan James is very questionable. So you're probably going for more of your long-term build, which it makes sense because you went with a lot of youth. So if you weren't going to go win now, I do like the long-term for Odunze, Addison, Jamo, Judy, Kyle Williams, a lot of rookies. So you're not going to be competing right away. But I do think you have a good young core of a lot of upside. You just got to get some running backs. Kiffin Falls has Jalen Hurts, Goff, and Darnold. I really like the starters. I think, like I said earlier, Jared Goff is one of the most underrated fantasy quarterbacks that there is. He's been top 10 at least the last 2 seasons. I love the Drake London, JSN, Mike Evans. I like Ridley as a good value. I love Mooney as a good value. Hollywood, we'll see. Tesla, they invested in him. Burton, if he could just get his head out of his butt, would be great. Then the running back room is kind of like mine, where you have a lot of older guys, but if they were to stay healthy, man, you got some upside with Breece Hall. I love him. I think he's a good bounce back candidate. McCaffrey, Swift could get some good volume. Aaron Jones is talented if he stays healthy. Dobbins, if he stays healthy. A lot of questions there, but Hawkinson should have a big bounce back season. And I love Gadsden. Just maybe is he going to see the volume in that off run first, kind of Greg Roman, Harbaugh offense. 100% guaranteed. We got Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, no quarterback 3. So kind of like Howie, I personally prefer to get a quarterback 3 for my team, but that's fine. Nico Collins and Hunter, Waddle, Downs, Jennings, Rashid Shaheed, Coker, Tank Dell. So you could have a bounce back with Waddle. I'm a little bit skeptical of him. I love Josh Downs, though. Obviously, I love Travis Hunter, Nico Collins. Health could be a potential worry. Running back room with Hampton, Scadaboo, Tootin, and White, Brooks, and Marks is a little bit questionable in the sense of, maybe you're not going for a win now build because, the role is a little bit cloudy potentially with Hampton, in my opinion. Scadaboo as well. Tootin. I think that these are guys who are going to get volume in due time, just kind of going to be off to a slow start. Tyler Warren, I like Tyler Warren. Travis Kelsey. I love the pick of Harold Fannin, though. My own team, I got not Hurts. I got Stroud and Purdy and Geno Smith. Quarterback 3 is kind of for me, but it was just about getting a starter. I think that CJ Stroud should have a bounce back. I think he's going to be your general high-end QB2, low-end quarterback 1, but I think he's talented. I think Brock Purdy has the upside to be a top 5 quarterback if things go his way with rushing touchdowns any given year, and he has that extension long-term. Obviously, I smashed it with Neighbors and Thomas at wide receiver. Now, I took a ton of risk, though, with Henry, Kamara, Connor, and Montgomery. So if they stay healthy, great. But, if, for instance, Kamara goes down, I think Devin Neal is going to be the guy you want out of that backfield. And then if Connor goes down, I got Benson. I think that Giddens, Wright have some upside if something were to happen to the starters. And I think Giddens probably get some work. But overall, tons of risk and age with this running back room. So definitely get that. And then tight end, I like the upside of Njoku, Theo Johnson as well. Overall fine team. Only one real ended up getting Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa as his quarterback. Did he get a quarterback 3? He got Will Howard. So very questionable quarterback room in my opinion. So I don't really like that, to be honest with you. But Bijan Robinson, Pollard, Harris, Davis, and Brashard Smith. So some question marks, but upside besides Bijan Robinson. You get some short-term upside with potentially Harris and Pollard. The receiver room, though, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Pickens, Higgins, Coleman. I really like the top-end talent there. I love the pick of McBride. It's so hard to tell between who's actually better in real life, Brock Bowers, Kittle, or McBride, but really talented guy. Bobby's big board. He got Mahomes, Knicks, and Justin Fields. Tons of upside with Justin Fields. I love that for you. CeeDee Lamb, McLaurin, Hill, Burden, Shakir, Mims, Royals. So, you took a big risk potentially with Tyreek Hill, but the return could be massive. Burden probably not going to do too much for you now, but I like the long-term upside, and he was chosen by Ben Johnson. Evan Ingram, I love the upside there at tight end. Gesicki, same thing. When T. Higgins goes down, we know that Mike Gesicki can put up massive numbers there. And then running back, I love Josh Jacobs. Hubbard's one of the most underrated assets at running back, in my opinion, given the extension they gave him. Charbonnet, tons of upside in the event of an injury. So you're a little bit questionable at depth at running back, in my opinion, but besides that, a lot of talent. And then Six Domper. So he gets McCarthy, Mayfield, and Milrow. Tons of upside at quarterback. Then at running back, you get Gibbs, Achane, Hunter, Krosky Merritt, and Will Shipley. So very thin at running back. But you get Nakua, Igbuka, Flowers, Harris, McMillan, Ayobanner, and Mitchell. So I really like the Igbuka long-term pairing with Baker Mayfield there for sure. Zay Flowers, I think, is kind of one of those guys, kind of like your JMOs, your Pickens, where the floor is on a weekly basis kind of but the upside is great. I love him as a real life talent as a Ravens fan. Puka Nacua, if he can just stay healthy. And then I love the Jonnu Smith and Isaiah Likely pairing, likely for the future in the event that they get rid of Mark Andrews. And then Jonnu, if he doesn't get traded, or if he does get traded, gets put to somewhere where he could be, a top 2 option, or hopefully at least top 3. I like that. Overall, it's really hard to tell whose team is better. That's subjective because everyone's going to have a bias, including myself, of players that they like and for which they would have drafted. So you guys can kind of decide for yourselves who you think is a good win now team. Yap says very even draft. Can't really spot a team that's vastly better than the rest. It's really tough when there's 12 teams just having to look like this, and it's not really sorted by player. But either way, I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who was in the chat. I really appreciate you. Thank you to everybody who joined. You guys are awesome. I plan on doing these weekly, sometimes twice a week. I'm going to switch it up, like I said, different kinds of requirements in the lineup, different settings in the sense of I can't really dictate, the scoring settings in particular. It doesn't let me put half a point for tight ends reception, right? I can't format that for these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to artificially do that by just letting you guys know before you enter the draft the specific settings, and then you can kind of use your mind to adjust rankings for what they are, and then we'll have that kind of in the chat, right? I'm going to switch up between redraft, especially we're going to do more heavy redraft drafting once we kind of get more towards the time of the year where we kind of have an idea what the rookies are looking like in the training camp and such. But once again, I really appreciate your support. I'm going to end the stream here, but I will see you guys later. Thanks for coming out.